Stop to it. All right, and welcome back to another episode of Joel's Mind. Today, we are talking about mental health. It is May. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and there is no better way to end off the month with some mental health awareness. So, today I want to talk to you all about my depression. I want to talk about what I go through when I'm having an episode, along with breaking some stigmas and just talking about mental health overall, good, bad, just disorders, ways to combat that, and all that good stuff. So let's just dive right into it. As some of y'all know, my father recently just overcame cancer. Shout out to my dad. You're a real one. He's a walking legend. I love you. It's been hell. I ain't gonna lie. The last several months, it's been difficult. It's been real fucking difficult. And I've been doing my best to show up every day and be the best that I can be, in all the buckets that I got going on, everything that I have on my plate, my work, my relationships, my brotherhood, being a son, being a partner, all of that, being a podcaster, being a contributing member to society. It's been real difficult, people, and it's been a challenge. But we are at the end of the tunnel, and I'll tell you what, the light is bright, as bright as these lights in this room right now. So, shout out my dad, and shout out to Seattle Integrative Cancer Center treatment that been taking care of my pops. I'm glad we went with these people. So just real quick, fuck cancer. So my one major obstacle that I encounter throughout the year, and just throughout my life, is depression. I want to say I suffer from depression. I'm not a victim of it by all means, and you shouldn't feel that way either. But I deal with depression. That's the best way I describe it. Is I deal with that motherfucker. The fucker's annoying, but I do my best to deal with it, along with everything else that comes with being human. Stress, anxiety, mood, just being moody, mood disorders, stuff like that. So yeah, let me go ahead and break down my depression. When I first sought out to see a counselor, it was when I was in school. I was transitioning from undergrad into grad, but at that point it wasn't quite there yet, as in being accepted in grad school. And man, I was really going through it, people. I was really, really going through it. I just couldn't think straight. I just felt this weight on my chest, like I couldn't really breathe. Like I just felt like there was a lot of pressure around me, literally, and my mind was just racing all the time. I was so indecisive and just high tense, and just like I need to know, like someone just give me the answer. What do I do next in my next steps of life? Do I decide to go to grad school to pursue being a mental health counselor? Or do I take a year off, take a couple years off, go get some real experience, enjoy, not being in school, and then come back and do that? And, so at the time I was 21, 22 maybe? No, I wasn't 21. Giving myself too much credit. When did I graduate? 2017. So what's 2021? I'm 27. 2017, what's that, 4 years ago? So what, 23? 24? 23. So I graduated when I was 23. So I was 23 years old. I was constantly asking myself about my life. For those that are dedicated followers, you've heard me talk about my timeline, having a timeline, trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. And I had that timeline not entirely figured out, but I understood the 10 years, that age between 20 and 30. I really was in a crossroads trying to figure out whether if I wanted to continue with going to school. I was burnt out. I was not ready for school. I shouldn't say I wasn't ready for school, but I was not a good student. So it took a lot out of me to just be an average student. I ain't gonna lie. So, um, it took out a lot of me, and I was tired, people. You know, there's days I was just like, man, I don't want to do this no more. But you know, I persevered, I prevailed, and I, you know, didn't let the demons get a hold of me and keep me down. So, but it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine. I tell you that. So there I was, 23 years old, asking myself, Joel, what do you want to do with your life? You got a beautiful woman that you know you want to spend the rest of your life with. So, you know, you definitely want to propose to this lady at some point. Still haven't done that, but you know, we're working on it. You know, I want to do that before I turn 30. I want to get married to this lady. I want to get, you know, I want to have a house with her. I want to, you know, have children. At that time when we talked about children, our timeline was 25, 26. That's when, you know, we talked about, you know, that's when she wanted to have some kids, and I was just like, hey, you know, that's what you want, you know, I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind. And man, it's just wild. I was just thinking about it now. I mean, we don't got kids either, so this is gonna be a fun story. So, you know, I'm like, man, I wanted to get in real estate. I wanted to get married. I want to have kids, or at least, you know, that's all part of the timeline. I'm like, but if I do grad school now at 23 years old, 24, I think actually was when I actually graduated. I was 20. I turned 24 that year. Um, the master's program that I was in, it was going to take me 2 years to get that done. So in my mind, I was telling myself, I graduate at the age of 24. I got 2 more years. So that means I'm going to graduate at age 26. At age 26, I'm going to be walking out of the educational system with no experience to some degree. I'm not going to have a real job until I'm 26 years old. And that didn't sit well with me, because then I was thinking about everything else. Well, what about real estate? What about getting married? What about having kids? What about doing this, doing all that? As you can tell, I'm a big overthinker, but I was like, you know, in order to have all those things, you need to have financial stability. And it was what I was telling myself. And so, like, how am I going to get financial stability, walking out of 26 years old, having 4 years to enjoy a little more of my 20s and then do all that? I was stressing out, people. I didn't know what to do, and I wasn't doing that well in school. So, like, I was getting burnt at both ends. I was trying to get my grades up and do extracurricular activities so that way I can get accepted into grad school, but all while trying to figure out if that's what I really actually wanted to do. It was really tough. I was being pulled every which way. So yeah, so there I was going through it, and I it was really tough. Like, it was during that time, you know, I had a brief moment of, I wouldn't call this, you know, I don't want to alarm anyone. I wouldn't call this suicidal thoughts, but you know, there was a brief moment where at one point I was like, you know what, my life would be much easier if I just wasn't here. Not saying I wanted to hurt myself or I was gonna do that, but you know, that thought did run across my mind. It's like, things would just be easier if I didn't exist. So there I was. I was like, you know what, I need some help. I need to talk to someone. First time I called a counselor, I was nervous, people. I ain't gonna lie. Can you fathom that? Someone that wants to get into mental counseling, calling a counselor for the first time. I was nervous, super nervous. So I called. You know, phone rings. It keeps on ringing. You know, I kind of, you know, felt the relief of that nervousness, and boom, voicemail. You know, leave your name, number. We'll get back to you whenever we can. So I'm like, all right, bet. I called. Click. I was gonna leave it at that. But I was like, nah, you can't do that, bro. You can't punk out like that. So I called again, knowing that they weren't gonna answer. But I left a voicemail that time. I got a phone call back. We set up the appointment. We did all that. First day I walk in there. We do a little exam, you know, a little ACE test, I believe. And that test, I don't remember the score, but that test basically had said, you know, I was suffering or dealing with signs of depression. And I was more heavier on that depression side, but it wasn't severe as if it was diagnosed as chronic depression or major depressive disorder. So wasn't that severe, but it wasn't, you know, I definitely was going through some things. And so I only saw this counselor twice. I know it's not the greatest experience that I can really share with everyone. But that those two sessions that I did have stuck with me, and they've definitely have been around. Um, it's something I still reflect back to and get some insight from. The lady was very nice, and we talked about some things. We talked about my life, talked about what was going on, and whatnot. And she actually recommended a book. And the reason why I don't feel, I guess, embarrassed or ashamed to share this story is because I actually left with a tool that I still use to this day. And let me just reach for it real quick because I think I have it. Nope, I don't. I have it on another shelf. There it is. All right, forgive me for the pause, but yes, she gave me this. She recommended me get this book. This book, it's called the Mindfulness and Acceptance Workbook for Depression. Um, this book, it's very relatable. In this book, it's like almost like a series. It goes more on depression. There's a book on anxiety, on PTSD. I believe split personality disorder. So this book, the structure of the book it's cool. It breaks down what the disorder, the illness that you're going through, and then it talks about the steps on how to combat that and kind of what you're going through. And so I got a lot of help from this book, and I don't think we ended up following up back on both ends because just those two sessions did really help. And again, I wasn't diagnosed with something very severe. I wouldn't even say I was diagnosed with depression, but I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have depression because I wasn't diagnosed with depression. I'm not going to kid myself, people. That's part of just being aware of who you are and what you encounter in your life. It's just knowing what is out there. So depression, the way I've dealt with my depression and what I've been through with my depression, it's been it's been cumbersome. It's been difficult. Depression, mental illnesses. It's an invisible opponent, but that opponent is also you to some degree. It's your brain, it's your chemical levels, your neuron levels and whatnot. It's your past experiences. It's the things you've gone through, your environment, the choices you've made. So although it is invisible, you can't necessarily attack it. You can, and that's what makes it difficult, especially for myself. It's been hard, because I'm a very observant person, and I'm very analytical, especially when it comes to when I'm going through a depressive episode. It's 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 just different each time, but it's very similar. So it's not always the same. But I'm sitting here. I can sit here and tell you today. Each time I feel like I've gained better traction than I did the time before when I was going through a depressive episode. So the reason why I bring up my father and him, beating his cancer, because it's been heavy on me. It's been heavy on my family. It's been heavy on the people that love us and care for us. Life and death, it's inevitable, and it was something that we experienced as a family. So it was difficult. And this time, I definitely did the best that I can to observe myself and try not to fall too far back, because with any type of mental illness, that's when that's when the people in the white coats, as I like to say, they label it because it becomes severe, where it becomes an issue in your life and your day-to-day activities. It prevents you from being who you would be when you're not going through what you're going through. So it's difficult, and especially dealing with like the definition of depression. I'm just going to go ahead and pop open this book and just read you what they have as the definition of depression. Okay, so this book, it doesn't necessarily describe depression in a way that is a scientific definition, but it breaks down depression in a way that is interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and read that to you real quick. Depression never springs out of an otherwise healthy, vital, purposeful life. Depression is not an aberration, a fluke, or an accident of nature. It is a logical result of what you're putting into your life. Your depression is telling you something that you need to listen to. It's a signal that you need to spring into action and address the aspects of your life that are out of balance. And that's pretty cool. So there's different definitions of depression. You can Google it. Oxford Dictionary is going to come up and have its own definition. The sciencey world is going to have its own definition with a little twist to it. What I've learned is what does depression mean to me? How do I understand my depression? Like I said before, I wasn't really diagnosed with a severe depressive disorder or anything like that, but that doesn't mean I don't have depression. That doesn't mean I don't go through depressive episodes or just states of mind or just time periods. Just like the book describes, it's a signal of being out of balance, which, I appreciate that because, it's something that I'm going to continue to learn. I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to be willing to accept that my depression is going to be similar to others, but it's going to be my own, and that's all right. Like, that's what makes us who we are. And, makes us, that's part of our journey. So I just try to understand my depression and, how others' stories and experiences and how they deal with it, relate to mine, and what I can take from what they share and implement that in my own journey and obstacles and whatnot. What I try to do is I look at my depression in all circumstances, in all different perspectives that I understand, and I do that in a biological way. I look at my sleep, my eating habits, my attitude, my energy levels, my weight. I use those as all indicators to check in on Joel, see how Joel's doing. If I'm seeing a huge, fluctuation, I check on that. Is it me, being gluttonous and just, giving into that temptation of just, being hungry, or am I stressed out and I'm not eating throughout the day, so I end up gorging at the end of the night because I'm highly stressed and I don't have an appetite, so I'm just going throughout the day, trying to make it through. My sleep and my energy levels as well. Is it me, goofing off? And I shouldn't say goofing off, but like, is it me not being responsible and disciplined and, going to bed at a certain time? Or am I staying up late because am I being avoidant? Am I avoiding something? Am I staying away from a particular thing because, I don't have the energy to face it. So I look at it in that standpoint. I look at it in a spiritual aspect as well. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. And I wouldn't cast a stone at you if you didn't agree with me. That's all right. That's not what I'm here for. But I do look at it as demons and the devil, trying to win and one up me and try to, lie, cheat, and steal in my life. And I look at it in that, I ask myself, how have I been spiritually? Is my faith still there? Have I been, praying? Have I been, walking that life that, I believe in? If I'm straying away from the path, maybe it's also that, maybe it's me, losing faith, or, being so distracted that my faith isn't being, restored and being, connected and staying there. And so that's another perspective that I like to look at, my depression, and just kind of, pinpoint, what's going on, what's what. I also look at it as an individual standpoint as well. Is it just me? Is it Joel just being Joel? Is Joel just being lazy? Is he having a lazy day? Is he being stubborn? Is he just, throwing up his hands and saying, fuck it? Is Joel doing one of those? Or is Joel doing something else? Is he being too ambitious and putting too much on his plate? You know what I mean? Am I burning myself out by, not setting boundaries and saying yes to everything and anything? Is it just me? And I also look at my willpower, am I punking out myself? Am I just, giving myself excuses? That's what I look at. I try to assess and analyze my actions, my behaviors, which is a funny thing, because you think, be like, well, Joe, you're living your day-to-day life, like, how are you not in control? How are you not paying attention? How are you not doing that already before you do what you do? Well, it's just that's how this, that's how funny the world is. We do things out of reaction, or out of just mere routine. Like, we continue to do things so much where it becomes bland, and we act out in our own way. We do our own thing where we start to, fight, against the machine per se. And we have these odd behaviors or these odd encounters, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't think I would have done that. Looking back on it again, I would do something different. You know what I mean? I would handle this situation different. I would handle that encounter better, or whatever it may be. So, I the reason why I look at, the biological, spiritual, individual, my willpower, all that, because I use those perspectives, those standpoints. I use that data that I can, obtain, and I use that to fight against my depression. Because at the end of the day, I remind myself, hey, Joel, at the end of the day, man, like, when you start going through some things, like, you really start going through it. And the thing that I've noticed that I've done is that I freeze. A lot of people will know that fight or flight response. And it's interesting. The books that I've been reading lately, they're starting to introduce the fight or flight or freeze response. That freeze wasn't really something they talked about so much when I was in school, but these newer books that I'm reading now, and it makes sense. And that's something I do. I freeze. Literally and metaphorically speaking, I tend to just, hold myself back, and I lock up. And it's tough because I lock up. I lock up mentally and physically. I'm constantly in a loop in my mind, thinking about what is, what's my current obstacle. And so it's difficult. It's difficult because I like to solve problems. Like, I'm a problem solver. Like, sometimes I notice when, my friends or the people close to me vent to me, I'm like, I'm quick. I'm trying to find a solution. Like, oh, this is your problem. This is the solution. Let's get this taken care of so you can go on your merry way. And, we're all at our baselines again. But sometimes sometimes it's more than that. Even a solution is not going to solve what's going on internally and mentally. Like, it doesn't account for that. Like, for example, I'm starting. I've been gaining weight. I ain't gonna lie. But like, the solution to that is just to get on diet, start exercising. Boom, you got it. Good, Joel. Do that for the next couple months. You'll go back to where you were a year ago. Well, yeah, absolutely. But I want that to stick. I want that to, I want to, like, not go down that path, come through another hardship. I mean, respectfully, the pandemic was a fucking curveball. Everything going on in my personal life and even my work life is just curveballs, whatever. But like what I'm trying to say is I want to better prepare myself so in the future when I do encounter something that's a curveball, I want to be ready for it. I don't want to lose track of, just let it all go and freeze, and then the next, I'm back to where I was at. I'm trying to solve it internally as well as externally, and with mental or disorders, mental illnesses, I think that's where a lot of people, go wrong. Well, don't do that. I'm having a bad day. I'm having these negative thoughts. Well, stop having negative thoughts. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Start thinking nice things. It's not as easy as that because there's just so much going on. Your conscience is it has a lot going on, and that's not to account for your physiological brain. What's going on physiologically to make your body to react the way it's reacting to that consciousness. It's very intricate. The mind is very intricate. The brain is very intricate. And so it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3 people. But to kind of sum it all up, I use the biological, the spiritual, individual, my willpower, in my past experiences and my understanding of depression to better understand it, so that way when I encounter it, I can fight it off. I can I can stand against it, and I can heal myself in a way that allows me to not have so much repercussions, have so much damage, have so much freeze time that I don't know who I am no more. I have so much at stake that I've lost, because it's just it's possible. We all have family members or know people that are constantly trying to, overcome this certain mental obstacle, but we're sitting on the sideline, not really understanding what they're really going through, and to be quite honestly, they may not even understand it. So my story with my depression is that I'm trying to understand it, so that way I can fight it better and make those adjustments when I need to, when I encounter a mental obstacle, when I encounter another depressive episode. I'm much better prepared to go through it in an understanding way, because sometimes you just can't control the things that you go through, and you can't control life. Absolutely, I didn't fucking couldn't control the pandemic. There was just so much going on during the beginning of the pandemic, people. It's just crazy. I should write a book about it, but I can't control that. My girlfriend had a freak accident. She broke her leg. I couldn't control that. I couldn't control, what insurances, what doctors did and all that. I couldn't control that. I couldn't control my father being sick and getting cancer. I couldn't control his healing process and whether he was going to make it or not. I couldn't control that, and some things you can't control, but, if you are able to better understand what you're going through, it's easier to not be so hard on yourself and not be so judgmental, and think that it's just my willpower. If I could just get out of bed and just go to work and just put on a smile, I'll get through my end of the day and I'll be fine. It's not. It's so much more than that. And so it's just a better understanding of, okay, how am I going to get myself out of bed knowing damn well I don't want to get out of bed. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's my story on my depression. That's my story in general. So I want to talk to you all about just the definition of mental health real quick. So I'm going to pull it up on Google, so that way we all can look it up and be on the same page with your across the world or wherever you're at. So Google's definition, defined by the Oxford Languages: mental health is a noun, a person's condition with regard to their the psychological and emotional well-being. All this pressure seems to be affecting his mental health. Yes, they're talking about Joe's mind. Well, so your psychological well-being, something that we're still breaking stigma to. It's something that not everyone really understands. Hell, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Even the professionals are having debates about psychology, about depression, about all the illnesses and consciousness, what does what goes where, how do we heal, what's the best. It's still being figured out, people. And that's it's bittersweet because we don't have all the answers, but we don't have all the answers. So um, mental health is something that we're still revitalizing and trying to accept in society. It wasn't long ago that people that were autistic or schizophrenic or having like just severe psychosis, they were locked up and treated, I would say, worse than prisoners. They were treated as second grade human beings, and this wasn't like the the 1800s or early 1900s. This was like 1950s, 1960s. This was less than 100 years ago that these poor individuals were grouped up in insane asylums and being hosed down by just super high pressured water, being raped and abused and harassed and just being tortured. And so mental health, uh, just overall, it's still being accepted and being understood in society. And we all know there's racism out there, there's biases out there. Mental health is part of that, just that negative toxicity that we're breaking these habits and going against the grain of what we've been told. So yeah, I want to share that with y'all because that's not something that everyone knows unless you are familiar with that background. Um, Real quick side story. I I used to work as a caregiver back in the day when I was in school, and the clients that I took care of they were vulnerable adults, and those same adults were those same individuals that I'm talking about that were thrown in insane asylums. There was this one client of mine shared a story that he, I, confidentiality reasons, I'm not gonna say any names or anything like that, but this poor individual, he's very limited with his capabilities. He needed assistance in being bathed during that time, and during that time, what they would do was they would just throw him in a tub. And one time he shared an experience that they would basically boil the water super hot and just throw him in there. And mind you, this particular individual is not suitable to swim. It's not suitable to float. It's not suitable to do anything like that. He shouldn't be in a bathtub by himself, or even with assistance. It's not the best or ethical way or efficient way for him to bathe. But he had shared stories where he would essentially be thrown in boiling water and just be left there. And it's just sad. It's disheartening. It's disgusting. And that's why it's important for us to talk about this. It's important for us to get that knowledge out there, to get that, because for all that we know, someone on the other side of the world could be going through that right now. And it's important to me to share that with y'all so that y'all have a better understanding of where and why mental health and understanding these illnesses and the way we progressed as a society to understand this is not at it's not at its peak. It's not perfected, and we don't have all the answers, but we definitely have made progress. But we are still needing to break some boundaries and some stigmas. So with that, it's a perfect segue into the word mental illness. When I would read up on mental illness, it's such a negative word. Like, it's such a negative connotation, in my opinion. That's just me throwing that out there. That's Joel's mind for you. When I used to think of mental illness, like, it's such a negative connotation. Like, who wants to be ill? Who wants to be sick? Like, I don't want to be sick. You know what I mean? Like, we try to stay away from people that have a cold and a flu, and we all know that you're gonna be fine in a couple weeks. And so, like, mental illnesses, that's why you'll hear me trip up, say mental illness, mental disorder, because it's still a word that I'm still understanding and I'm still learning. Um, and one way I over, I guess not overcome it, because, I wouldn't say, like, I'm still mental illness is not the perfect word I would describe it, but it's not the worst word. It's better than being called insane or psychotic or crazy. But I've learned that mental illness it's fitting, because if you do think of a mental illness as a common cold, as of allergies or just a sickness, you think of it that way. People that have a cold or a flu or something along the lines of that, most likely they're going to be fine at the end of it all. They're going to be able to come out of it and not be sick anymore. And I've learned that that's very similar with mental illnesses all around. I mean, unless it's severe, but I mean, even then, yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to be sick forever. I wholeheartedly believe in complete rehabilitation in terms of not having to be on antidepressants or medications. Not saying that they're a bad thing, but I do believe people are strong enough to learn their mental illness and combat it in the way that best is suitable for them, whether that's a combination of both, having to be on medication forever, or having to be on medication momentarily. But what I'm trying to say is, mental illness, the word itself, if you think of it in a sense that like me recently, I've had a couple depressive illnesses where I was not doing too hot, but I'm still here. I shouldn't even say that I'm still here, but I'm not where I was when I was going through all that. And it's just a better understanding for me to look at the word overall and not have so much of a negative connotation anymore. I can talk on mental illnesses and not be like, ooh, ew, where's my mask? You know what I mean? So just food for thought. So I want to kind of spread a little awareness about some common mental illnesses that are out there. These common mental illnesses are described by the National Alliance of Mental Illnesses. So our mental illness, National Alliance on Mental Illness. So these are what they describe as common. I'm going to go ahead and read these definitions, and we're going to talk about them, but I'm also going to include a link in the bio. So if you want to, learn more about a certain mental illness or, some symptoms or whatever, it has all that information on that. So I will go ahead and tag that along. So first and foremost, everyone's favorite, anxiety disorders. What they define as anxiety disorders as everyone can experience anxiety, but when symptoms are overwhelming and constant, often impacting everyday living, it may be an anxiety disorder. All right, moving on to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which I swear, I think I might just have ADHD. ADHD is a developmental disorder defined by inattention, trouble staying on task, listening, disorganization, losing materials, and hyperactivity and impulsivity, such as fidgeting, difficulty staying seated or waiting. All right. Bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder causes dramatic shifts in a person's mood, energy, and ability to think clearly. Individuals with this disorder experience extreme high and low moods known as mania and depression. Some people can be symptom-free for years between episodes. Going back to, I agree that people are able to combat their mental illness their own way, and just that definition alone, some people can be symptom-free for many years between episodes. It's we're on this earth for more than just 5-10 years, you know what I mean? And that's why it's important for me, and I believe it's important for everyone else to understand these mental illnesses and these mental disorders, so that way when it does arise, and it will arise in the future, we're able to kind of sit in it, go through it without being deeply affected by it. All right, moving forward. Borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is characterized by a pattern of instability in emotions, commonly referred to as dysregulation in interpersonal relationships and self-image. Individuals with borderline personality disorder can also struggle with impulsivity and self-harm. All right. And your boys, personal own illness, depression. Depression involves recurrent, severe periods of clear-cut changes in mood, thought processes, and motivation lasting for a minimum of 2 weeks. Changes in thought processes typically include negative thoughts and hopelessness. Depression also involves affects sleep, energy, appetite, or weight. This one, I've gone through it enough times to know that I've definitely experienced disassociation. So this is dissociative disorders. Dissociative disorders, which are frequently associated with trauma, disrupt every area of psychological functioning: consciousness, memory, identity, emotion, motor, control, and behavior. I highly recommend looking up dissociative disorder if you experience a lot of daydreaming or just not being present and completely zoning out and being spaced out. I recently learned more about it, and it's helped me understand myself. Eating disorders. Eating disorders are characterized by intentional changing of food consumption to the point where physical health or social behaviors are affected. Yeah. I love food. Just had to say. Obsessive Compulsive disorder. OCD involves persistent intrusive thoughts, obsessions, and repetitive behaviors that a person feels driven to perform. Parentheses, compulsions, in response to those thoughts. All right. Another very known common post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD involves a set of psychological and physiological responses. It can occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event, such as a natural disaster, a serious accident, a terrorist act, rape, war, combat, or something similar. Sorry, Siri popped up on my phone. Just trying to say hi. Psychosis. Psychosis is characterized as disruptions to a person's thoughts and perceptions that make it difficult for them to recognize what is real and what isn't. Talk about hallucinating a little bit. Schizoaffective disorder. Schizoaffective disorder involves symptoms of schizophrenia, such as hallucinations or delusions, and symptoms of a mood disorders, such as depressive or manic episodes. Schizophrenia. Now that has its own definition. Schizophrenia interferes with a person's ability to think clearly, manage emotions, make decisions, and relate to others. It also causes people to lose touch with the reality, often in the form of hallucinations and delusions. All right. So, National Alliance on Mental Illness. If you want to look it up and read more about it, I will add that in the link in the bio description, whatever. So real quick, raise your hand if you heard me read those and you're like, damn, I think I have all of that. Yeah, me too. So, the reason why I want to bring that up is because, these illnesses, these disorders are, in my opinion, in Joel's mind, can't be seen in our day-to-day behaviors with other people or in other people as well. And how so? Let's go ahead and start with number one, anxiety. We all have anxiety, and to the point of severity. When you have anxiety that prevents you to be able to complete a task or make a decision or act in a way that is you or not you, I should say, then that's we encounter anxiety. And I'm not saying that everyone has a mental disorder. I'm not saying everyone is ill with anxiety, but we all experience anxiety. So we should all have a commonality when it comes to anxiety. Some anxiety is more severe than others, where it literally prevents them from stepping outside of a room. Now, when you experience anxiety, it's real. It's something that's preventing you from making a decision, or you're worrying about something that you start to have a panic attack. It happens. Social anxiety. You sometimes people feel pressured into drinking because they feel like that's what they have to do, and they have that pressure. That's social anxiety of, having to fit in or wanting to fit in or doing something that you don't necessarily want to do. But also being in groups of crowds, or being at a party. Have you ever been at a party and been like, damn, dude, everyone's looking at me right now. Everyone's looking at me right now. Everyone's talking about me right now. I feel like that person looking at me is looking at me for a reason. That's social anxiety. Um, when does that usually happen? Probably happens when you go to a new place that you've never been before, and you're there for your first time. Or you maybe just got done smoking a blunt in the next room, and all of a sudden the atmosphere is different. Social anxiety. So yeah, I wanna talk about this because I don't feel like people, they look at anxiety, stress, or these disorders and illnesses as like, I'm untouchable. I don't have that. Some people don't even understand that they do have it, but they just never had this conversation. So they don't know how to relate it or piece it together. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. We all get distracted. We all lose focus at some point, and especially when we're going through something, like if we're really stressed out or really worried about something. Being distracted and fidgety, it's all signs of also anxiety, but being under stress, under pressure. So of course, there is the severe spectrum where, having ADHD, there's people that they literally can't focus or go about their day unless they're fidgeting. That's on the severe spectrum. But for some of us, or most of us, I should say, where we experience, stress, and then we're just nervous, I would say nervousness is a very smaller symptom or sign of ADHD. Not that you have ADHD. Again, it's just these are the misconceptions. Oh, I don't have ADHD, or I'm untouchable. I don't have that. Well, have you ever been nervous or excited for something that you just couldn't stop? You're talking fast, you're pacing back and forth. That is a small experience of what someone that has ADHD is kind of going through, but of course, different spectrum, different scale. But we're not untouchable. We're human. It's all part of our biological and physiological structure. That's normal. We fidget and we do stuff to help calm ourselves down. So I'm just spreading the awareness. This is what we're doing right now. Bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder causes dramatic shifts in a person's mood, energy, and ability to think clearly. Individuals with this disorder experience extreme high and low moods. We all had bipolar to some degree. You know what I mean? How many times have we woken up, gone to bed, hated the world? Once we got some breakfast in us, once we washed our face, did our little routine, we're ready for the day. Got some coffee in us, got some caffeine. Boom, high and low. You know what I mean? Low and high. It happens. So yeah, and we all know how that one coworker that was just like, Jill over there, she's a tough one to handle. I'm just joshing you. All right, borderline personality disorder, characterized by a pattern of instability in emotions, interpersonal relationships, and self-image. We all go through this, people. Everyone, most of us, has gone through high school. We all had been worried about what we thought or what people thought of us and how we were portrayed in the society of high school. So can we sit here and say we all have borderline personality disorder? No, but if we're sitting here thinking about our image and trying to fit in, and we just have unstable emotions because we're hormonal and going through changes, it's similar. You know what I mean? Again, of course, bipolar or borderline personality disorder, if you're actually diagnosed with it, it's something much more intense. But for those like myself, where you're experiencing something but you're not diagnosed with it severely, I just want to point out the similarities that we go through with someone that may have it on a severe spectrum. All right. Depression. I could talk about this all day. You know, I'm not gonna read the definition because, like I said, I could talk about this all day. Ever been sad? Ever been, upset or disappointed or let down or just unmotivated? Just gone through something just very energy draining, depression. That's what it is. It's, it puts you on an unmotivated, scale where it's just hard to do things. Ever had your heart broken? We all have our heart broken. Ever lost a friend to some drama or to real life? Like, you know, going through that loss, going through that pain, it's just mind boggling. That's a form of depression. Um, so depression. We've all experienced it to some degree. Again, it may not be major depressive disorder, but we can't sit here and say, "Oh, I've never been depressed." You're lying to yourself. All right. Dissociative disorders. Like I said before, if you're a daydreamer, if you're sitting there thinking about, something, or you, let me kind of describe it real quick for you. If you're sitting there and your vision just kind of goes blurry, but you're looking at something, but you're not looking at what you're looking at, but you're looking at whatever the direction you're looking at, but your mind is completely somewhere else. You're in an imaginary world. You know what I mean? You're not there. You're not present. That is disassociated. That's dissociating. Say that 10 times fast. Dissociating. When you dissociate, you're not present. You're somewhere else. And the reason why people do have the people that are severely on that spectrum of being on a dissociative disorder, or they have a dissociative disorder, it's because they are experiencing something very traumatic and venturing off in your own mind and being in an imaginary world, being somewhere where you're not in the present and you're in your conscious, your subconscious, or whatever. It provides a safe space for you. You don't have to deal with all the shit, all the bullshit, or whatever, the negativity. We all know what it was like growing up, and having our parents get in a fight, or being in our friend's house and their parents were fighting, and it's a scary thought. And if you allowed your mind to venture off and go somewhere else, that's disassociating. Kind of, on a very, very like minor level, when you're at work, you're not paying attention to the Zoom meetings because, let's be honest, it's hard to pay attention because you're not in person. But even when you are in person and you're just sitting there daydreaming about something else, you're in a different environment, So can you say you've never dissociated before? I don't know. You tell me. All right. Eating disorders. Your boy, he's dealing with that right now. But of course, eating disorders, has a lot to do with your psychological, your physiological well-being in terms of, your image of what you look like, what you want. If you're highly stressed, if I don't know if y'all know this, but when you are experiencing high doses of cortisol, what happens is your brain is essentially telling your body to hold on all the fat that it possibly can, so that way it can store that fat and then eat it later when you're not able to eat. So the reason, and I probably didn't explain that very good, but the reason why we have that mechanism in our body is because when we were cavemen and cavewomen back in the day, and we had to kill animals with our bare hands to eat, that was a survival mechanism that allowed us to store our own fat and not eat so much, but continue to store that fat so our body would eat off that. So if we didn't have a meal the next day or the next couple days, essentially our body was eating itself to have energy and keep on moving. It's weird. The body's very intricate, very amazing, and very interesting. So yes, eating disorders. We all succumb to temptation and gluttony at some point. Your mom's food, some homemade tacos. Ooh, let's go. You know what I mean? We've experienced that. So mental health, awareness, eating disorders. It happens. That's all right. Obsessive compulsive disorder. I'm going to just read this so we can recap on that. OCD involves persistent intrusive thoughts and repetitive behaviors that a person feels driven to perform. Now, these are minor, and I wouldn't. I've talked about this in another episode. Um, OCD is something that it's just when it's real, and it's like, not that it's not real, but when it's on a serious spectrum, as in like you're literally not capable of doing anything because you have to do these rituals because you think someone is out to get you, or you think that if you don't do this you're going to die. That's very severe. um but on a on a more relatable spectrum, on a more relatable field, cleaning the water around the sink, I have to do it. I have to, even if it's with toilet paper or something. I got to do it because it bothers me, and I feel like when I see it, I'm constantly thinking about it in that moment. When I'm washing my face or doing my hair, I get water everywhere. I wish I was better at it, but I'm not. And so when I see it as I'm doing there, washing my hair, washing my face, doing whatever, letting my fucking charcoal mask do its thing, I'm looking at the water. I'm like, I need to clean it. I need to clean it. And so there I go. I clean it. Or let's go with your mom's pet peeve, having the toilet seat up. Your mom's gonna see your toilet seat up, and she's gonna be like, boy, put that motherfucking toilet seat down. I bet you she's sitting there thinking about it and thinking about it. Ooh, I'm gonna say something. I'm just gonna put it down. I gotta say, you know, that repetitive behavior is, you know, boy, put the toilet seat down next time you're using the restroom. OCD, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, involves a set of psychological and physiological responses. It can occur in people who have experienced witnessed a traumatic event such as a natural disaster, serious accident, terrorist act, rape, war, combat, or something similar. Now, I'm gonna tread lightly on this one just because PTSD it's not something. It's just there's a lot of different severe cases on it, but PTSD, when you've worked for someone that's toxic, worked for someone that was, or just been around someone that was mean and a bully, you react a certain way. Your breaths become short. You know what I mean? Remember in school, or even now, you got to deal with a bully, or you got to deal with someone that is just very aggressive, or just you got to be on edge. I would say that is a very slight form of PTSD. You start to tense up, you start to react, you start to remember, how things are going to go. Now, to kind of further explain that one situation where someone was picking on you, or being aggressive towards you, or being mean to you, belittling you. Now you could be in a completely different situation and react the way you did that very first time, because that other situation that's not the same but similar, that environment, those factors are making you feel small, or making you feel tense, or making you react physiologically where you're not able to breathe. You feel like you're claustrophobic. You're starting to get hot and starting to get sweaty. That's all physiological responses. That's what PTSD is like. So, I mean, very small, very minor. That's the way I would describe it. But of course, PTSD on a severe spectrum is having nightmares, night terrors, not being able to do things, because you can hear a book slam on the desk or on the floor, and you're gonna shit your pants because it's gonna take you back to a war zone, and you thought it was a gunshot, and your body physically responded by shitting. I'm not even making this shit up. This is a real story. I've been told by a vet. And so, again, severe cases, but we're trying to bring awareness to mental health illnesses and our day-to-day lives. Psychosis, schizophrenia, I'm just going to lump it all together. Psychosis and schizophrenia is, kind of being delusional, not having, not being able to pick apart reality and whatnot. We all have that friend that swears they be doing something or saying something, but the motherfucker be lying. Or, we hear something different from what someone said. Someone could say, orange, and what they really said was door hinge. And, you swear you heard something different. Would that be described as being delusional? Not, hearing something different than what the reality was? Or how about, let's take it a little further, having a disagreement with someone, and having an altercation with someone, and that person is saying, you did this and you said this, but the other person is saying, that's not what I said and that's not how what I meant it. At that point, are we delusional? Is our anger getting the best of us? Are we not being able to agree on what was reality? Psychosis, schizophrenia, or how about when we are up late at night and we think we can see something in the corner of our eye, hallucinating? I've had it happen before. I swear I've seen this old style lady with those the dresses where like they had like the big dress thing going on, and like, yeah, old 1800s looking ass dress. I had this lady, I swear, walked in my parents' room. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was a kid, and I was watching her playing video games, something. And I swear, that corner of my eye, I seen like that figure walk into my parents' room. I'm like, all right, it's time for me to go to bed. So if you ever experience that, what I'm trying to say is you may experience a very slim form of mental illness, mental disorder, whatever you like to describe or call it. All right. So to wrap it all up, the reason why I'm explaining this to you is so that we can help better understand ourselves, most importantly, but also understand the people around us. I'm not sitting here telling you to go and start labeling everyone and start diagnosing people. You got this, you got that, you got this. No, what I'm trying to say is that we're all human. We're all still understanding what it means to be human and what our minds are capable of doing. And if we're able to understand, mental illness on a spectrum that it's accepted in society, where it's not such taboo and such a negative connotation and such a inferior trait, then maybe we can live in a better world. So to wrap it up, I want to leave you guys with some things to help maintain your mental health. As again, it's mental health awareness. So, the good and the bad and the good, how to maintain your mental health. For starters, there's no significant order. Just gonna go ahead and go one and done and all that good stuff. All right. Surround yourself with people that make you feel good, that you enjoy, that make you feel happy. So that way you're not in a toxic environment, an environment that you feel that you're on edge, that your palms are always sweaty and you're short in breath. That's stress, that's anxiety. Don't surround yourself with people that are constantly making you feel that way, or making you feel like you need to attack. You need to have a split personality disorder and, have a high and a low mood. And you know what I mean? You surround yourself with good people that are kind, that are caring, that support you and have you in your best interests. All right. 2, practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is being present in the present moment. So taking the time to meditate. I highly recommend you download the Headspace app. I have it on my phone. I've been using it when I downloaded it. And the times that I've stopped doing it and I started doing it again, it's helped me be be present in the moment by focusing on my breath, focusing on my body, focusing on the surroundings near me, the sounds, all that good stuff. You can even be mindful while you're eating, slowly chewing the food, tasting everything, trying to, break apart, this is a carrot, this is salt, this is pepper, this is, whatever, you know what I mean? And mindfulness, practicing that allows us to be present in the moment and get us out of our minds, especially if we're working hard and diligently and we're constantly on the go. Take a break, take a moment to do some mindfulness. Number 3, give yourself as in volunteer. Give yourself to, a friend or family, help someone out, do something kind for someone with your good gracious, with no expectations in return, just from the kindness of your heart. That helps us feel good about ourselves, gives us self-confidence, gives us purpose. It helps us just feel better about ourselves. And again, do it selflessly, do it with love, do it with kindness, do it graciously, and it will make you feel so much more better, especially if you're, down in the dumps or going through some things. Physical activity. Huge. Physical activity, drinking water, having better eating habits, a good diet, just even in general, just something you're eating consistently that's not, greasy, full of fats, full of like bad fats. You know what I mean? Just over excessive on stuff. So this is huge. A lot of mental illnesses, mental disorders that I've learned in school, physical activity, diets, they really help overall. Even just with disabilities, some people are gluten sensitive. Some people, they're, they are better off on another diet versus like a high protein diet. Believe it or not, the brainwash book that I've referenced in my previous podcast or episodes, the ketogenic diet has helped people with cerebral palsy, and people with seizures. There's a patient of David Perlmutter, I believe that's his name. He had his client go on a ketogenic diet, whatever, keto diet, and she virtually has had any seizures by being on a diet. So learn yourself, people. Learn what is it's in your best interest, what's sensitive to your stomach, what makes you inflamed, all that good stuff. And physical activity, absolutely, it just helps overall, helps with your focus, helps with your energy levels. It helps your brain reconstruct itself, believe it or not. And water, we're 9% of our body, 70%, whatever the statistic is, we're made of water. Water contributes to a lot. With our fluids, our chemical brain stuff that's going all up in there, digesting stuff, our organs, it takes care of a lot of that. So making sure you have water, making sure you're drinking water and eating and exercising really makes a difference. Really helps with the mental health. Sleep is probably the most underestimated contributive factor to a lot of mental health problems. Sleep is huge. It's just, and being in America, living in the good old US of A, we're workaholics. We're born and bred to work. It's quite honestly bullshit. And it needs to change. But sleep, we don't sleep, man. I got a 9 to 5. It's 11:30 at night. I'm making this episode. I'm gonna be lucky enough to get about 6.5 hours of sleep. But sleep is super underestimated. Don't count yourself on sleep. And if you do, make it up. All right, take a nap. Don't let society tell you that you're lazy if you take naps. That's bullshit. Some of the most successful people out there take naps because they know that their brain needs that energy to finish out their day. So take naps. Don't take too long of a nap, or you're gonna be kicking yourself like every college student out there, where 20-minute nap turns into a 5-hour nap, and now it's 10 o'clock and you didn't do anything. All right, so sleep. Taking a break without guilt. Now, this is huge, and this is something I've been doing. For those of you that are dedicated followers of Joel's Mind, I've been kind of away from posting and stuff like that. Kind of taking a break. A lot's been going on. We just got a dog. We rescued him. Shout out to Legend. And there's a lot going on in Joel's mind. And as much as it was killing me, because good old USA behaviors is me needing to work and me needing to continue to put content out there, decided to take a little break, and it was literally a little break. It wasn't nothing severe, but it's all good. It was something I was able to take a break, and I got better at not being so guilty about it. But I also, I'm not perfect at it. You know what I mean? It's all a work in progress, people. So taking that break helped me just give myself my energy, that direction, that mental clarity that I needed to bounce back and go ahead and take care of what I need to take care of. So give yourself a break without guilt, without making yourself feel like you're scum, that you're lazy, that you're just unworthy, because it's bullshit. Don't listen to yourself that's talking shit to you. It's just what we've been told by society. So take a break without guilt. Allow yourself to do that, and then go back to what you got to do. All right, gratitude. Gratitude is huge. Mental health, it helps when you're grateful for stuff. If you're constantly being a negative Nancy, just a poor sport about life, and you're always talking shit, it's not helpful for your brain. It's not helpful for your relationships. It's not helpful for your blood pressure, your stress. It's not helpful. So sit there and say something that's nice. Say how much you're grateful for whatever it is. Your parents, your guardians, your work, your partner, your new rescued 8-year-old puppy. You know what I mean? Just say what you're grateful for. You'll be amazed by how your attitude changes and your outlook is a lot less aggressive and intense, especially when you're having a bad day. And sometimes you just gotta remind yourself that you're blessed. Some days are harder than other days, but at the end of the day, we're still blessed. All right. Number 9, accepting who you are and where you are. This one's huge. Accepting who you are and where you are in life and what you got going on. I'm gonna be real with you. I wish I was making some money off this podcast, but your boys, I'm barely scratching the surface. So I gotta accept that. But I gotta accept that this is part of the journey. You know what I mean? The episodes that I got going on, the mistakes, the times that I didn't show up, the times that I am showing up, the times I got been shouted out by The Rock and got followed by Miss Rose Nama Eunice. You know what I mean? Yeah, I gotta accept where I'm at and what comes out of that. All right. So accept where you're at in life, accept what you got going on, where you're at. If you're not where you're at, where you want to be, just accept that you're on your way to getting where you need to be. All right. And remind yourself, give yourself a pat on the back, let yourself know that you're doing a good job and that you're capable of getting where you need to be and where you want to be. Number 10, express yourself, people. Express yourself. This will help you so much, so many different ways. When you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling frustrated, or you're feeling sad, or you're feeling hopeless, or just going through the woes of life, express it. Express that shit, baby. Let that shit be heard. Let that shit be known, whether it's talking to someone, writing it out, making a poem about it, rapping about it, doing something to allow you to express what's going on internally. Sometimes you gotta get that shit out. It's like tears. Tears, they feel good when you let it out. You know what I mean? It doesn't always look good, but it feels good afterwards. Just let it out. Expressing yourself, learning how to express yourself. It's huge, especially in relationships and in the work environment. Communication is key, and if you're able to express yourself in a way that's constructive, that's not toxic and not abusive, by all means, you're better off, and the people around you are better off. So allow yourself to express yourself. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. And accept where you're at. If you're Mr. Macho or Mrs. Macho, and you're just like, I don't like doing that, accept that you're gonna take it slow, and that you are willing to open up and be vulnerable, and just keep swinging at it like a tree and keep hacking at it. And one day, motherfucker's gonna come down, and you're gonna be woke. All right. And last but not least, in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I had to save this one for last. Do not be afraid to ask for help, people. Do not be afraid to reach out, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, and definitely do not be ashamed or feel guilty or feel weird or feel less than for calling a therapist. There's a lot of resources out there, people. Do not be afraid to reach out. Do not be afraid to look up stuff. And, wisely look up stuff, and don't misdiagnose yourself or self-diagnose. I'm not encouraging anyone to do that, but I'm encouraging you to get the help that you need, because you deserve it. You deserve to live a life with abundance and joy and fulfillment and purpose. You deserve a life that is going to let you get up out of bed voluntarily, okay? Don't be afraid to ask for help, all right? Real quick, throughout this whole journey of what was going on with my pops, I was going through it really, really bad. And your boy called 2 different therapists during this time. And I left voicemails. This is the very first times that I called. Voice messages. I've left voicemails both times when I called initially. And both times, I didn't get a call back. Yeah. So, forewarning, keep calling, keep trying. But what I did was I ended up talking to a very close friend of mine, and it was equivalent to speaking with a therapist. I just was going through it, and having someone there to talk to and just be vulnerable and just be able to, like, look, this is what's going on, this is what's going on in Joel's mind, and this is how I'm feeling, and I don't really feel like I can talk to anyone else, but I'm telling you. And I've it just helped me out so tremendously that I will encourage you just to talk to anyone. And don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Of course, know who your audience is, know who you're talking to, but don't be afraid to get the help that you need, because we can go our whole lives being miserable until we finally let it out, and then that day will be the day that we get to live the rest of our life. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and end the episode with a poem that I made last year with a friend of mine. The poem is me. The poem is about my depression and all that good stuff. So in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you gain some insights, and I hope we broke some barriers today and broke some stigmas. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to give your boy some feedback, follow your boy on Instagram at Joel's Mind Official, on Twitter at Joel's_Mind. Follow your boy on YouTube. I'll link my YouTube channel link down below, and the comments are in the whatever description. And YouTube, since you're there watching me, smash that subscribe button, like the video, comment, tell me what you like, tell me what you didn't like, tell me what you've diagnosed yourself by watching this video. All right, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the poem, and I hope you do what you got to do to take care of yourself and your mind. All right, Joel loves you. Y'all take care. Have a good night, good morning, and good evening. Good night, good morning, good afternoon. The other day I had a battle with depression, and I won. It's not easy to talk about the things we don't understand. But what I do know, life should not be lived in a dark, hollow shell of ourselves. The other day I beat depression, but my opponent and I know that this is a war. Time and time again we face each other in a mirror of deceit, held hostage. Depression. Depression is like holding yourself hostage. The mind and soul is fixated, our limbs and lips move, but it's hard to voice the unseen battle. I visited my mom's the other day. She asked me how I was doing, and I hesitated as I caught the choke up, flooded my eyes before they opened up, and said everything was okay. It's not easy to talk about the things we don't understand. Depression. Depression is like holding yourself hostage. I took a drive to ease my mind and allowed my eyes to scream, mercy. It was then I knew I had won. For 3 days I was held captive by the invisible enemy. Stuck in a limbo, I broke free of the ropes, unshackled the chains, and took back the empty vessel that was my brain. You see, the good fight is the fight within ourselves, and on that day, I fought myself for myself. Disrupting the routine like a deadly virus, I took off my mask and freed my silence. Speaking that everything was going to be okay in existence, and I believed it. Using the light of my life to push the shadows away, the enemy retreated back to the dark place it came from. This episode ended with a hopeful beginning, but not every episode ends that way. More than 800,000 people die from suicide every year worldwide. That's twice as many deaths than homicides, which tells me we think more about killing ourselves than we do other people. Normalize this conversation so that we can keep our friends and family together with us. Thank you.